Hello, I'm Bill Davis, and on behalf of the entire Office Hours team, I get to say welcome to Daily Show 1708. This is the place we answer your tech questions live 7 days a week, so we're going to get right to those. Our reader today is Courtney Gooden in Hollywood. Courtney, what have we got on the list today?
Thanks, Bill. Robert Shoji in Los Angeles asks if anyone has user experience with the Aputure MT Pro. I'd like to use it as a rim or a hair light.
Harshid is going to start us off today. Good morning, Harshid.
Good morning. So I personally don't have that user experience aspect, but I do have friends over here at Office Hours, such as Guy Cochran, that uses a lot of the Aputure gear. So as a resource, if you would maybe want to reach out to him. And also if you reference back to any of our Cinegear coverage and or I think it was NAB as well, there were some instances of where we covered what they have to offer. So maybe if there is one series of a light, maybe there's another similar offering from them. So for that specific model, I've talked to you in After Hours before. So for that specific model, you may also reach out to, like I said, Guy Cochran, or check out your past episodes.
Nice. Okay, Alex, you use those two style lights.
I use the same style. So these are the this is what he's talking about here. So this is an RGB WW, which means you can get pure white out of it, as well as having all the different colors. It's programmable. I think that there's probably a couple photos here. You can kind of see what it looks like here. And this one, I mean, from the images, I think you actually can set regions for that. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure if they're just trying to show that it does all those colors, or that allows you to have regional control over it. You'll see that you've got a mount on one end, and then you've got some basic controls on the other. What these are really good for, I mean, they can be in a pinch. Like, so when I'm traveling, I carry the Nan Light. I carry the Nan Light version of this, and so that's those are the ones that I'm using there. And what I like about them is that they're really small. They have basically, I can snap them together. I can snap them on metal. They have metal. They have magnets on it. I take 4 of them oftentimes, and I'll put 2 in the back to do some highlights and coloring and so on and so forth, and then 2 as kind of the lighting for me if I'm in a hotel room. They're nice and small and they work. I actually like them a little bit better than these. I looked at these and thought that, I might switch to those. And as I played with them, I think that I felt like for what I do, they would not be as good. But Aputure is a great company. So I think that they produce a lot of great stuff. But what I find it useful for is in a pinch, you can use it as keys or fills. But really what it's good for, in my opinion, is a lot of...
Specifically rim lights. I've gone away. I used to carry little small Fresnels, which make a great rim hair light, but they're horribly inefficient, particularly the old tungsten Fresnels that I had. So I've moved mostly to these little small panel lights. These guys are made by a variety of companies. In fact, this one, the G1, is the first one I ever got. And I noticed that Newer has now knocked off, and it's exactly the same. If I showed you details, they obviously either bought the patent or did something. They're now, I think, $65 a piece. And it's really easy to fly them over somebody, and I think it makes a lovely head and shoulders light as long as you can kind of get it at the right distance. They get pretty bright, though, so that's a less expensive, that I think is a little more controllable solution. Those tube lights, I think, are fabulous for a lot of things. It would not be my first choice as a backlight or rim light, just because I don't think they're as strong as some of these other type solutions, particularly the LED arrays, if you can understand how to manage them correctly. My 2 cents. Courtney, you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I was kind of about to say the same thing. These for a backlight or rim light, you want to have control over it. And just an open tube, or one that it only goes 180 degrees, it's going to spill all over the ceiling, all over the floor, all over the background. So you want something that maybe has barn doors on it so that you can keep it off so you can limit it to keep it from flaring into the lens or going onto the backlight. These small rig video lights that come in a 3-pack for like $87 have these little barn doors on them, and they're great for doing little over-the-shoulder, little rim light or top light. They're lightweight, LED powered, and reasonably priced. I don't think they're remote controlled at that price, but they can give you enough backlight to work with.
I will say one thing. I was impressed that particular Aputure that you're looking at does have a small fabric grid when I looked on their website, and fabric grids are really great for keeping spill off of things. I could not see a page on their website where it said how deep the grid was. For everybody who's interested in lighting, when you get into using fabric grids to control spill, the depth of them is pretty important in terms of broad source being narrowed down so that it falls where you want it to. If not, I couldn't tell. If it's only a half an inch deep, it'll give you a little bit of spill control, but not that much. The deeper it is, the more spill control you get, but the less light you get out of kind of the pattern that it covers. So just keep those things in mind. Let's go to our next question.
Next one comes in from Chautauqua, New York. Zach Stallsmith wants to know, for folks with multiple stream decks with companion, are they all running in the same instance or on different pages, or are they running completely separate instances?
Alex, do you know?
I'm going to let folks watching put it in. I don't use them. I don't use Companion, so I haven't used. I think I play with it, and I think it's cool, and I can see why people use it. I just haven't had the need for it for the way I use the Stream Decks. I have a bunch of them here, but they're all just using the Stream Deck software, and they're actually connected to each other. Not connected to each other, connected to different computers. Mickey says that I use the native Stream Deck application like I do with the Companion plugin to bring Companion buttons in. I organize one Companion page per Stream Deck. I will admit I don't like pages. So one of the things with Stream Decks is the reason I have so many floating around my desk is that I like to not have to ever think about paging. So I just have things that are flat, like these are the number of buttons. These are the 32 buttons I have. These are the 6 buttons I have. These are the whatever I have. I'm just going to reach over, and I kind of like to treat them like appliances. I know that's a very caveman-like way to manage a Stream Deck, and there's a bunch of people watching. I can't believe he's living in such a small world. But that's how I do it. I just want to look down, see the thing, and push the button. I don't like to do it. So I have a lot of that. It's good for Elgato because people like me buy a bunch of their products rather than using pages.
Well, you do so much live work, and in live work, timing and control is everything. So not to have to say, did I go 3 pages down? I got to back up. By that time, your cue's gone.
Yeah. I just don't like to. I don't like to use the thing that I'm conscious of if I'm on air is in almost in all times is, how much personal CPU time, like how much of my attention is being spent doing anything. So if anything takes brain processing to manage between me and the action, I'm looking at that as a weak link. Like I have to think before I did that thing. And that means when I'm under stress, it means I have to figure out what that looks like. It means that if I'm on air, you'll hear what I hear. What I talk about is hearing commas. Anytime you hear someone go, like they're adding commas, that comma is because your brain never really, multi-processes. It just switches back and forth. And so if I'm switching to what page am I on instead of staying switched to what I'm doing, that is slowing down my process, and it doesn't look as good on air. And even if I'm behind the scenes, I just don't want to have a lot of those things. So that's why I kind of approach it that way.
Next question.
Sorry. Next one comes in from New York, from Alton Christensen. It says, are refurbished or recertified drives worth considering for a non-archival nearline NAS setup using Synology with an SHR1 formatting? If so, where can I find a reputable place to buy them?
Harshi, do you have a thought on this?
I do. Just the fact that it's refurbished and we're talking about storage, it just runs a bell in my head of reliability. So in my opinion, I wouldn't go for those offerings, but I will see what the panel has to say.
Alex?
I would not do that. Don't buy used drives. On so many levels, don't buy used drives. There's certain things. I mean, I don't buy a lot of electronics, but I definitely like used. But I definitely wouldn't buy used drives. It's just there's too much wear and tear. You don't know what's happened to them, where they've gone, humidity, all kinds of other things that will shorten their life. And you're putting things theoretically on them that matter. I wouldn't. Yeah, I'd always get them pristine.
Yeah, sometimes it's not wear, it's non-wear. If that drive has been sitting in a storage room for 4 years before you get it, the question is, will it even boot? Courtney, your thoughts?
Yeah, I concur. If they're spinning drives, you have problems with formatting creep. If they're not low-level reformatted, if they're refurbished, you don't know if they did that or not. And if they're solid-state drives you're talking about, then you have flash. It has a limited lifetime of writes. You don't know how many times that flash has been written to. So with wear leveling and everything, you don't really know. And I don't know how they would refurbish a solid-state drive anyway, other than check the contacts.
Let's move on to our next question.
From Panama City, Panama, Eduardo Augustine says, I was requested to manage a small conference using Zoom. Should I allow Zoom to do the mix minus? They want speakers in the room to hear the Zoom callers, and also want their audio to be heard by the Zoom callers, but no feedback. Suggestions?
You're about to find out why audio is sometimes one of the more difficult things you do. Alex, dive into it.
So Zoom rooms with speakers, you should try it because it may actually work. The Zoom rooms echo cancellation, Zoom's echo cancellation is actually really good. Is it going to be as good as everyone wearing headphones and having a mic and doing all that? No, it's not. But it's not out of the question that it can make that happen. What I will tell you is that your room makes a big difference. So you have a small conference room. What that conference room looks like is going to make a big difference on the quality of that echo cancellation and the quality that it sounds for the people that are there. So what I mean by that is if a lot of hard surfaces, it's all going to sound bad for the people online, no matter what. So even if the echo cancellation works, it's just going to be hard to hear them because it's so roomy. This is the problem with most conference rooms. They look shiny and they have nice whiteboards and glass walls and everything else. That ruins the experience, So we had it was funny, right after COVID, we had these executives coming back to some of these pretty big companies, and they when they were gone and they were still kind of in that in between where they're still jumping into meetings and people are in conference rooms, they're like, "What happened to the conference room?" And then people were like, "What do you mean? This is the conference room." And it sounds so bad. And someone said, "When was the last time you had called in?" This is what it sounds like all the time, and they were horrified. Like I was talking to someone who does installs. They were horrified that they had had the last 10 years. It had sounded like that in that conference room, and they had gone in and talked to them. So there was some of the more forward-thinking executives started taking those conference rooms apart and softening all the walls, putting things on them, having them still look nice, but having a lot of sound taken into account, and they sound way better, because they treated the room, not the mics, not the speakers or whatever, but just the room. Now, the other thing you can do is there's a lot of the hardware that you can get that is going to make that easier. So some of the conferencing room hardware is designed around this. The way we do it in large events, not really conference rooms, is we're using a Dugan auto mix for the speakers and the mic. So the speakers push the mic down and the mic pushes the speakers down, depending on which is louder. It takes a little bit of tuning. It doesn't always work, and you need someone to manage it. So that's not probably what you want here. You want someone to be able to set and forget. But I would go ahead and try the Zoom Room solution before I started pulling everything apart, because you may find that Zoom's echo cancellation works pretty well. And the first place I would go if it didn't was actually treating the room as opposed to putting more electronics in.
Next question.
Next question comes in from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. He says, other than office hours, what is your top news source for audio, video, streaming, and film and TV industry news?
Courtney Gooden, start us off.
Well, I like to use a couple of things. As far as web pages go, I use Google's News, the technology tab, which is right over here. And that they have that divided into mobile, internet, gadgets, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. These sub-tabs here can isolate the news more for you, and they give you the top stories there. And for my, so that's really handy. For in the middle of the night, when I wake up and I have my voice assistant nearby on the desk stand, I ask for the Wall Street Journal Tech News Briefing. And Wall Street Journal publishes a tech news segment that's usually about 5 minutes long at midnight every night, that is updated at midnight for the next day. And then in the middle of the morning, they do a shorter one, a briefer one, 1 minute long briefing that is for the rest of the afternoon. So if you have one of those voice assistants, that's a handy thing to have. It's free. Wall Street Journal Tech News Briefing.
Harshid.
For me personally, I rely on probably YouTube just because of the access of various companies. So if you're looking for what's new and improved with Sony or Panasonic, that's kind of an offload where you will find to reach their audience, they'll put their videos up, and you'll also have places like B&H or such do interactives. So it really goes down to the nitty-gritty with the actual users and or professionals that may be using these products. Other than that, some of the networks such as the This Week in Tech network, otherwise known as the TWIT network, you'll hear a lot of news stories, but you get to hear the opinions of actual people, certain people that are on this panel, for example. But an example of that is we have varietals. So getting different perspectives from a news source, maybe it is Time Magazine or it's Gizmodo or something, and you get a understanding of trying to find that information, or maybe you haven't been exposed to said companies. So maybe sticking to one magazine may not be the wise choice because the top best keyboards, everybody has a different opinion. So I think in that the professional media or what's available, the outreach, of course, on YouTube, and then news articles, as Courtney already covered with going on Google, definitely you find kind of what's going on the clock, on the hour. And another one that I have heard in the past was LinkedIn. LinkedIn seems to have a faster pace of what's new, and as it drops, there's more people talking on LinkedIn these days, it seems like, other than X or other platforms. So those are just a few.
Alex Lindsay.
A lot of the stuff, I'm following a lot of people both on YouTube and X. My X looks a lot different than everybody else's because I have like 150 terms that it just blocks. So I can't see most of politics and I think people get very upset in X, and I'm like, I don't know what they're looking at, because then I forget that I've been filtering all of that out. So most of my X feed is mostly people that I know that are doing video production. So X is they're always posting things that kind of keep things going there. I haven't found a better one. I mean, I'm on Blue Sky and, Mastodon and everything else, but the flow is so slow. it's hard to use it. The Tech Meme is another one in general tech that I'm paying attention to. So I probably look at that a couple times a day. It's a lot of executives in the media industry, or a lot of executives in the tech industry read Tech Meme. So that's, if you haven't heard of that one, it's kind of unknown, but it's very popular. Other ones, of course, you see clips from News Shooter, SVG, which is a sports video group, DGA, which is Directors Guild of America. So I'm on some feeds that I get those as well. David Brady said that Newscast Studio, streamingmedia.com, and reddit.com/r/video engineering.
There you go. He's found a subreddit that he's happy with. This is such a weird era. I remember reading a story a while back about the migration from push media, which was big media companies who were the ones on TV and you could get to them, to pull media, where your behavior, your choice sometimes, but sometimes just your behavior online is what gets feeds exposed to you. And I got to tell you, I'm still feeling my way through the new era where you are what the algorithms think you are. And so when you make a momentary choice, and my famous example of this was I had a friend who was getting married, so I wanted to buy a wedding gift. So I searched on wedding gifts, and for the next month and a half, I got all sorts of wedding push stuff that was coming to me because I had searched on that term once. And I think it's a little better than that now, but it's still understanding curation and trying to manipulate curation to do two things: get what I want, but also allow myself to get surprised by things I don't know I want, has been one of the challenges of this part of my life, and I think it's going to continue to be that. So I wish everybody well and happiness in getting not just the content you want, which is critical, but also get exposed to things that you didn't know you wanted but might really light up your life. This is a hard challenge in today's information environment, in my opinion. Moving on to the next question.
Comes in from J.J. McKenna in Scabo, California. Says, Courtney, what is a viable resource to start an education in SMT 2110 without a bank loan? I've looked for library resources without much success.
Well, Courtney, you were name checked. Go for it.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Bill.
No. Go for it.
If you've looked at SMT, go to SMT.org. And if you go to standards, there is a link here for SMT 2110 FAQ. You go to that, and it has a lot of explanations and a lot of links there to addressing system concerns and uncompressed video and audio streams, and it has links to white papers on a number of different products. You can see number of different subjects. So that's a good place to start there at the SMT 2110 FAQ, and then there's education too, and so you can click on their education, and there are books and things that you can get easily purchase directly from the SMT organization. But there's a lot of free information and white papers just there on the standards themselves. So that's a good place to start.
And I was just mentioning curation. Realize that you are in charge of the curation of what you see and hear on office hours in terms of the questions that are asked and how long we spend on each one. And you do that by your votes. If you're in the Mukana backend, you can directly vote things up and down. You can also just use the QR code. And I think, can I bring it up? Nope, that's on the wrong bus there. Shoot, and I don't think I can change that really simply because I don't have that screen up, but I will try to throw up the QR code coming up really quickly here. You can use that to instantly get into that queue. So if you have questions at the end of this question, I will find a moment and put up the QR.
And really, you just need to know to go to askofficehours.global.
That's right. I should
askofficehours.global. Askofficehours.global.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Let's move on to our next question.
And from Massachusetts, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Francis Fry says, what is the best way to learn from past office hours content? I have a very slow process of scanning through each episode for questions, but I know I am missing so much.
Well, there's an awful lot back there after 1,700 shows. Alex, what are your recommendations?
I will admit there are people who do go back and go back into the past. I don't look at it that way oftentimes. I really, as I think about this, as I think about your question, a lot of times my recommendation is to I know, Francis, you're already doing a lot, doing those things. And the best way the way to get the most out of it is while you're doing things, while you're working on things, and while you're listening to the daily shows, have a notepad or have notes on your iPad or whatever opened. When questions pop up, what's really interesting is that a lot of times we have little questions that pop up and then they just disappear. We forget about them. And one of the things that I learned to do, I had a situation where I got into this habit because every morning for about a year, John Knoll would walk into my office and look at my shot, and he would say, "Okay, well, change this and move this." He was the visual effects director for Star Wars, and so he would come in and look at my shots and give me feedback, and he would and I would write down what he had there. But what I learned to do was as I was working on the shot, I would write down what I thought needed to be fixed. I put them in the order that I thought that on a notepad, on a yellow notepad. I'd have them all written down, and John would come in and I would look at and I would show it to him, and I would try to do it in the order. And then he would say, well, don't worry about that one, but do this one, do this one, do this one, and add this one. And I would keep on trying to, as a game I played every morning, was trying to guess what John would want to fix, but what it got me into the habit of is writing things down. So then as I started getting the habit of writing things down that came up like that, what it is, I had that another notepad opened. And as I was working, and back then, 2 hours of the day was just rendering tests so that you could render your frames overnight. And so I would just write down anything that I popped up. I don't understand why it does that, or why does this take so long, or why does this do this, or why does it do that? And I would just write it down. And I didn't think about it then. I didn't research it then because I had work to do. But I would write down what I didn't understand. And I would do that. And then And then when my computer was rendering or when I was hanging out with someone that would know more than me, I'd ask them questions. I'd say, well, what does this go, why does this do? And I had the advantage of knowing the guys at Electric Image, which made the 3D app. So I would call up Marcus or I'd call up Mark Granger and go, okay, so why is it rendering this way? And I try to pull that information out. So I would use my downtime to absorb more information that I was writing down while I was working. Office hours is very much built around that pattern or that expected pattern, which is if you're doing stuff, anytime something pops into your head and you just write it down, like, I don't understand this, write those things down and then ask and maybe even set up a challenge for yourself to ask a question a day, of something that you didn't understand. If everybody did that, we would have a lot of questions. But think about writing those down and asking those questions there, and then definitely listening to the shows that are happening right now. The only thing I would say about the old ones is I would really go backwards or however you want to do it, but slowly just let them play in the background while you're working. If you can do that, I personally can't have people talking while I'm working because I'm thinking really hard, and I can't even have music running most of the time because if I hear the lyrics, I can only listen to music that doesn't do English because if I hear the lyrics, I can't work. So I have a hard time doing that. But if you're driving or if you have walking or whatever, you might want to listen to those things. But the most important thing is to really be capturing what questions you have today and asking those questions and having people explain that what are your problems today and having us solve those, because those are the ones that you're most ready to absorb. When you have a question, it means you now have a hook to hang the answer on. A lot of the problem with education a lot of times is we give you a lot of answers with no questions. We're just going to push down all this information to you to grab onto it. But if you haven't experienced that, there's no hooks there to grab onto it. So it just goes in one ear and out the other. And so I think that's the thing to kind of think about, is trying to look at the momentary needs that you have there.
Harshid?
I think the fear of missing out, or otherwise FOMO, it's not necessary in this case because we're always going through changes. And with changes comes, let's say, a new operating system or comes a new piece of hardware. And maybe it's a scenario. We've asked about questions about, let's say, lighting in so many different facets and ways. We've asked about furniture in so many different ways, about computer desks and so on and so forth. So if we really look at the percentage of most of those questions to rewind back to in the past, they may just be repetitive questions that you may have heard, and they may not be applicable to your needs. So where I personally would say is officehours.global is the great resource I would use personally because it has it in text. So let's say there was somebody that I was interested in, like Zaxcom, or I'm interested in audio, microphones, and so on and so forth. You have everything in front of your fingertips because you're not dealing with perhaps YouTube and figuring out which channel was this on. Was it on, the old channel when we first started? Was it on a 2.0 channel? And so on and so forth. So it is a great resource to at least use your Control F or Command F, I think if that's right on the Mac, feature to just quickly search through a topic and then go through something that may be your maybe niche of, like mine personally is accessibility. So I might find all the videos clumped up and then maybe making playlists. And then you could go one by one, go through those playlists. So maybe if it's past information, it might not be as important, and you could play it on 2x if that's okay with you or your learning speed, so to speak. And you could just kind of go through something, and then if there's a specific topic that you like within that said genre, I would then slow it down, dive in deeper, and then our Discord server with the back end, it's really, really useful. I know it could be overwhelming at times, but it's just good to ask people because we're all built off people, right? That's the whole global. We don't leave anyone behind with any matters. So if we don't know, this is the engine that we have built since March 25th of 2020. So it's that engine where we could ask questions, we could work through it together. So again, don't feel that you have that fear of missing out. Everything has changes day by day. Things change. and version numbers change. Zoom has changed so much. We've complained about this, that, and the other, the gray, Blackmagic grays, and this and that. So we have always put that information out in the open, and then we've made changes with that information. So if we want to make changes and we want to have, hey, company, hey, person, can you do this for us? And most of the time, if we work as a collective, we could always make things better. So I wouldn't say that there's much that you would feel to miss out on. Just go through your interests. If it's audio, if it's a company, maybe it's a time frame. So if you're looking by year, what was going on 2 years ago? And then come back to the modern day. Okay, what's going on now? And see and compare with the questions. And of course, how Alex has explained, taking notes and seeing maybe, you're trying to learn architecture and model designing, and while we talked about 3D, and so if you connect topics on even the words, hot topic words, that could also help you. And last but not least, sometimes in transcripts, I don't know how all the videos show up on our back end, but just going through the transcripts and looking for keywords will sometimes really speed up the process for you to fast forward to something that you like and get that information. So hopefully that helps you.
Alex, you wanted to come back in?
And if you want to see the two Zen masters of doing what I just talked about, just look at Paul Wallace and Douglas Carmichael. You can always tell what they're working on because they're asking questions every day. There's 2 or 3 questions every day of them. And you can always tell what they're thinking. You can just imagine Douglas Carmichael and imagine Paul Wallace, what they're trying to figure out, because they're working every day on something that they're trying to figure out, and they're just sucking up office hours to they're like I'm going to grab all the information that I need out of here. So anyway, those are good folks to look at of how often they ask questions, because they're always working on something and they're always asking questions. We have a quick poll that we put together. We're trying to figure out who's watching things on HDR. As you may have seen, this show is changing color all the time because we're figuring out the HDR pipeline. And so we're going to put this up. So this is how do you watch office hours? Let us know. A browser in HDR, a mobile device in HDR, TV in HDR, or SDR. So if you're not seeing in HDR, we're trying to figure out what device that you may be watching it on in HDR, because it does make a difference on how we build those things out. So let us know. Go ahead and hit that poll, and we'll keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And I'm changing every day too, because I just had to refresh something and got back to an old profile. And so we're doing all sorts of little questions and tests for ourselves along with everything else. Let's go to our next question.
I wore my Focus Test shirt. Paul Walhus in Austin, Texas, speaking of which, has, guess what Paul's working on? Suggestions for a desk-mounted lights that can be controlled from a phone or a computer that won't send you to the poorhouse.
Your shirt is causing me to think I need to solve that puzzle, Courtney. So I want to draw a line and see if I can get through the maze. Courtney Gooden is going to start us off.
Well, Paul, if you want the best, go for the Aputure. They're nice. They have remote control, but you will have a very well-lit poorhouse. The alternative is the super cheap. If you're just going to clamp them to your desk and they're never going to move, you're not going to have to ship them, then, stability and durability aren't as important to you. Then you could go for one of these cheapies. This is from Swidport. Yeah, there's a great product name. All the other letters are taken. SWDPORT, $30. It has Bluetooth remote control. I don't know if they have an app, but you got brightness control, on and off control. And you can change the color temperature there because they're dual color. So you can get those on Amazon. Swidport, they're 12 inches square is for the light panel, so it's a nice diffused panel. So there's a choice for you, that or the Aputure, if you want to pack them up and take them around with you. The Swidport comes with a desk-mounted stand and a tilt.
Next. Alex.
Anything can be desk mounted with enough gear. so you just have to decide. There's always some way you can take one of those hanging lights, and there's a mount at Film Tools that will let you attach that to your C stand. So anything can be made that way. What I will say is that I think that Elgato and Aputure have the best apps, and so those are the highest quality ones, I would say. Nanlight's getting there as far their app was a little rough. It's getting much better, but those are the ones. And The only thing I would say about the cheaper lights is a lot of times the apps that go with them have been rough, like that. And I haven't used the one that Courtney has, so I can't say for that one. But on some of the other ones, we have an app, and you open the app, and it's half English, and or English wasn't the first language of how the interface was designed, and a lot of buttons are kind of quirky, and so on and so forth. So I think that Aputure's done a really good job. Elgato's done a really good job. Nanlite again keeps on improving and catching up with those two. But I think that those are ones to look at for software control or for iPhone control.
Next question.
From Noonan, Georgia, Tony Mobley asks, are there any must-haves for the office hours community on Black Friday deals?
What I must have and what you must have may be different things, and what Alex's budget is going to be different than mine. Alex, is there anything you're looking for this Friday?
Costco is selling the new Mac Mini M4s, the base unit, for $499, so it's $100 off. It's the same as the educational. So that's available right now. I just got a Anker. I can't remember which one it is. It's an Anker, like a power supply for charging lots of things, but it's got a little screen on the front, and it's like 25% off. And so that was something that I'm trying to let me see if I can pull it up here real quickly. But I was pretty excited about that. So there's a lot of things that are monitors. So the Dell monitors that I use right now, I don't think I need any more right now, but they're $89 each instead of $109 or $120. Like, I use lots of cheap Dell monitors to keep everything tied together. And so that was Robert Green pointed out that DaVinci Resolve is on sale, $235 instead of $299, but also the hardware controllers that come with Resolve are also all on sale. So those are some other things that you can take a look at here. I'm going to try to find this. This is the charger that I got. Hold on, let me show you. I don't know if I really needed it, but it was. This is the charger here, and so it's got the 4 little USB-Cs, but it tells you how much what charging is going on in your USB-Cs in the front, and it actually turns out to be quite useful. I look over and I can see something's done charging or whatever. It's not pulling anything, or I can tell how much it's pulling there. So I just got that, and that was a bunch off. So those are some of the things Jim Brooks asked, what Dell monitors do you use? And I think when I went, let's see if I can find those real quickly. The ones that, let's see. The ones that you can see that I have just purchased it or recently purchased it. The ones that I have a lot of are something that usually are somewhere in the Dell SE 2422 HXs. And so as you can see, these are $89 each right now. They're 1080p. There's nothing special about them. They're not great monitors. Like, I'm not selling them as great. But if you need to take stuff from your computer and put it somewhere, they're great. And when you have as many as I do, you start to try to get efficient about what they look like. I do have I typically have a monitor that matters. So right now I don't. There's a problem with that one. But usually I have some kind of calibrated monitor. And admittedly, a lot of times I send stuff out for someone else to color. So Charles will color my monitor, color stuff for me, and then it comes back, and I know that he has a great monitor, and I don't have to think about it. I just have to get it close. And but for me, I just have lots of information. If you're just trying to put information on the screen, I think that those Dell monitors are pretty good. They are a little quirky about 30 versus 60 versus, they want to have, they won't handle the quantum pixels that Apple produces, and so you have to set them to what Apple calls the low res 1080 to get to them, and so on and so forth. But they're good monitors. I mean, I've used a lot of them for a long time.
Everybody's different. I got a little story. So I decided I've been looking to get the brand new AirPod Pros because I use them every day, and my old set is getting a little janky in their old age. I've had them for a lot of exercise time. So I ordered them, and I thought, oh, this is great. They're going to send them from the warehouse. I got them through Costco because Costco has them for $199. They started that last week. So I ordered a pair, and I'm thinking, this is great. It'll be here tomorrow, the next day. 10 days. And they took a nice little journey all the way back east. They visited a couple of cities in the back east before they finally got here. And so all I'm saying is that there are going to be a lot of people shopping online now. So if you need stuff to get there in a reasonable amount of time. Pay attention. They said that was originally going to take 24 to 48 hours to get them between the order and my door. Took 10 days. And I think the supply chains are going to be a little bit iffy. So if you're looking for gifts and things like that, my recommendation this year is to order early and get it in hand as soon as you can, rather, because I think the whole distribution system is going to be under a lot of stress as just literally hundreds of millions of people throw these orders into these systems. They work as well as they can, but there are always anomalies like I just ran into. Alex?
Guy mentions that the EcoFlow Delta 2 is $399 and it's awesome. I keep on circling that because it keeps on popping up on my Amazon thing. I'm like, oh, I really want that, but I don't need it. One that I'm bitter about is I did get the new AirPod Pro 2s from Amazon. I ordered those, or maybe I ordered from Apple or whatever. I can't remember where, but I paid the full, I just paid whatever it was going to cost when I bought them because buying them for the show for MacBreak and they're now $153. So they're like almost $100 off, just short of $100 off. So if you're wondering whether you should get some AirPod Pro 2s, they're the ones that have all the extra stuff, the noise cancellation and the ear protection and the hearing aid stuff. That's the lowest they've been in Amazon. It says lowest in 30 days, but I think that's the lowest they've ever been. Now that may mean that Apple's planning to release something new somewhere in the future, but it's a really low price for those headsets.
Courtney Gooden.
I really don't need anything, so I try not to shop on Black Friday. But I'll give you a tip. When I used to try and get stuff at Best Buy, let's say, rather than rush over there and stand in line with the 8,000 people that show up early to get those doorbuster specials, go online and order it over their website for pickup at the store near you. And that way they pull it out of inventory before all those people are let in the door. And then they hold it there, and then you can come by after all the crowds subside the next day and walk in and pick it right up and go home with it and have that instant gratification and not have to wait 3 weeks for it to come via mail. So there's a tip for you.
Next question.
Next question comes in from CJ Coville in Cincinnati, Ohio. Can the panel offer any advice on setting up new LG quad monitor? It won't see my Blackbird 4x4 matrix switch as 4K. EDID is set to 4K and Mac is sending 4K signal, but the LG sees the matrix as 1080, so it looks crunchy. Removing matrix results in normal picture.
Courtney, do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I don't have this Blackbird matrix switcher, but I believe that is your problem. I looked up the specs online. If this is the one you have, this is a Blackbird 4K 4x4 HDMI matrix HDR 18 gigabits 4K 60 hertz switcher. But then when you look down at the specifications, it says the output, it takes 4K input up to 60 hertz, but it says the video output is scaled 4K to HDMI 1080p. So I think that may be your problem. I think it may be outputting. That Blackbird may be downscaling everything to 1080p for the output. So check that. And if you have anything that will actually read the resolution of the video coming out of it, like MDHX from Decimator, which will tell you what resolution is coming out of that HDMI. Look at the output of that Blackbird and see what it's actually outputting. It may input 4K, but it may downscale it to 1080 once on the output of that switch.
Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota asks, do you folks recall scenes with streamdecks or similar with digital audio mixers? I have a M32C from Behringer, and mixing sound while doing a video switching in a live production is a little bit daunting.
Alex, what do you think?
Mixing sound with video switching is daunting. Like, it's really hard to do. I would try to keep it as simple as possible. If I was going to do that, I'd really think about some of the Rode and Roland products that kind of mix the sound and the video together. If you're trying to do complex mixing and complex video, that's going to be really hard. We generally will split that up. The only time you can really do video switching and audio is when one or the other or both are fairly simple. Otherwise, I think that it's really hard to do well. I mean, it's not that you can't do it, you just can't do it well. And I think that you're going to have a hard time producing a quality product without somebody else working with you on it. I think that's going to be your challenge. So if one or the other is relatively set and forget, then you're probably going to be okay. But as far as, again, recalling scenes we talked a little bit about, I try not to do anything during the show that requires me to change modes if I can avoid it. But I think that another set of hands is what you're really looking for.
I think Alex is 100% right in this. Why does this remind me of the wedding and event people that I know who tried to do for a while video and stills at the same time? And you always end up doing both jobs at best mediocre because you don't have your attention on your art when you're doing it quite the same way.
By the way, CJ said that he said the remote has an SD button and was downscaling as I pressed the button and it was well. Now output is okay. so there we go.
There you go. Next question.
Next question comes in from Paul Volthus in Austin, Texas. Take a look at this company in Oslo, Norway, and discuss the potential of their background segmentation tool called Reveal. It's open source virtual production software.
Wow. Okay. Courtney, did you take a look?
I did take a look. It's called Pixotope. Yes, Pixotope. And what it looks like it is it does an AI determination, analyzes the video coming in and kind of segments it into foreground and background and cuts you basically an outline out of your foreground so that you can put a person in front of a background or put graphics behind someone who's walking around. And it does without a green screen. So it does this without a green screen so that you could have them just on a naked stage or in front of a practical set and put graphics that they can walk in front of. I'm not sure how clean this does this. We've all seen these kind of, they're not necessarily AI, background removers and background replacers in Zoom and a number of the other conferencing software that's out there. And it's never very good because it does difference matting. It remains to be seen how good the AI in this is. AI is getting a lot better at defining humans and knowing what shape they are and doing it in real time. This is doing it in real time, cuts it out. And so I guess if you have a television station that doesn't have a lot of money, you could try this out. It is open source. They don't mention the pricing if they are selling it. It says availability and pricing. Please visit our webpage for pricing. Yeah, well, I don't see the price, so I guess you have to write them for the price.
Everything is being virtualized. Alex?
Yeah, if I got it, I haven't used this, so I don't know. But if I got it, the first thing I would probably do is do this with my glasses, like just go like this and just see what happens there. Like what happens with my glasses, and I go like this really fast because motion blur is something that most keyers don't like very much. And then start to do things that are complex. So this could be better. I haven't seen enough of it to really know. It's hard to. I don't know where that video is that Courtney's showing on their website because I just got a bunch of text.
Yeah, you have to click the little under pricing. You got to click that link, and then it brings up this, which is the product that they're selling there. So you can see from this. Oh, now it's going to start over. Yeah.
Oh, I see it. I see it now.
It basically pulls a mat and it separates the background from the foreground.
I mean, the mat is really hard. As someone who does this,
not feathered at all. But.
There's not everything about a mat. Like there's one in front of the football thing that shows a little hair. So it could be. I find that a lot of times people have these easy solutions, and then they buy them because they're easy, and then they spend an enormous amount of work trying to get them to work properly all the time. When you could just use a green screen. You can just put a green screen up. And if you added this to a green screen, you might even get more quality out of it. So basic fundamental, I think that a lot of times I have a hard time understanding the making things really like you can just do this in your office. And if I was doing a broadcast for soccer, I would at least just use a green screen because I will say that when you give Ultimate a clean green screen, you can key water. Like it is so powerful. And so I have a hard time understanding why at a professional level, I would want to use something other than Ultimate with a 4K signal, or and drive it into a 1080p signal or whatever. It looks amazing, And so I get it's easier, but that's producers talking, not technicians.
The 15 to 20-year-olds probably see green screening the same way I, in my early days, saw somebody cutting ruby lith to do that kind of separation. It's just a technology that, sad because people were so good at it.
I think one of the challenges is that almost nobody did green screen well. So a big part of my business before we did live was green screen, because people were shooting green screen so badly that I could just eat. I ate their lunch, their dinner, and their breakfast, because like the client would come in and they'd see that we did green screen. We did classes on green screen. We talked about the technology, everything else. And we teach people how to do great green screen. But a lot of people in the class would hire us to do green screen because they saw that they didn't want to figure it out. They just knew that we knew what we were talking about. And it's all about the lighting. So if you light a green screen perfectly or very well, especially for like interviews and like the stuff they're showing on the show, this is like, I can do that in 20 minutes with a couple lights with stuff I bought at Costco, like literally, and do a really good key with it. And I have, like, just to prove the model, I'll go buy some lights at Costco and I'll get some seamless green from the photo place, and I'll put it up, and it's just understanding what I'm doing. I can get all the hair and everything else with a consumer camera. Like it's not. Green screen is not hard when you understand those fundamentals, but almost nobody does, and almost nobody does. They have a bunch of weird rituals that they do and belief systems that don't work and everything else. And this has got to be darker. It's got to be one stop darker than the person, and it's got to do this thing, and it just has to be flat, at 70%. And the green needs to be 40 points from the red group. Now, when you're doing film, you can't do that, but when you're doing the stuff that they're talking about here, you absolutely can do that. If you don't see someone's feet, you got a world in front of you of how to key something, and that line should be straight across at a specific level, and you can nail, like, for what I'm talking about is for what they're talking about here as talking heads. So the issue is that everyone's been shooting it badly, so they're like, well, there's got to be a better way. But if you shoot it well, you can shoot. When people would bring us in, they say, well, how much it costs for you just to key it? And I was like, I charge them twice as much for me to key it than for me to shoot it and key it, because shooting it was what reduced all the labor, not the keying part. And I got to a point where most people that worked for me that had learned how to do green screen within Pixel Core didn't really know how to key, because you just tap on things and it would just go, gone. And it's just a matter of getting that just right. So I think that's what people are, they don't understand the fundamentals of how to do it, and so they're looking for something easier that will just do it for them, when what would really work, and this happens in our industry all the time, what would really work is just understanding how to do it correctly the first time.
It'll keep changing. Yeah. Next question.
All right, coming in from Buenos Aires, Jonathan Michelson says the M4 Pro versus the Max for streaming. Can software switchers leverage the dual media engines for more outputs, ISOs, higher res? Is the HEVC encoder any good for real time?
Alex, what do you think?
I'm doing some tests. I have the base Mac Minis, and not even the Pro or the Max. I have the base M4 Mac Mini that I'm going to be doing some streaming tests. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty powerful, but I'm only using it for a single feed. But I think that, as companies that are using this product get better at taking advantage of the hardware. One thing that was just sent to me, for instance, as an example, is the new Blackmagic update for desktop video allows basically, it says we've improved integration between these models and Apple Silicon computers by adding support for the CV pixel buffer. This means applications can leverage the computer's unified memory architecture and eliminate the need for data to be copied between your capture and playback device and computer. This gives increased performance, reducing latency and lowering CPU usage. As that keeps on happening, is what Blackmagic just released, I think, 8 hours ago or whatever, or yesterday. As that keeps happening, these computers will get more and more powerful. If companies are willing to write directly to that hardware and take advantage of the architecture, you're going to see a huge jumps. Not like 20% better, but 2 or 3 times better. So we'll see how that happens. But right now, I would probably get if I was going to try to stream and do very, very, very complicated things, I might try to get a decked out M4, Pro or Max. But I think that for a lot of things people need, what I'm testing is how do I just take a base unit and get something out of it, because they're very, very powerful machines.
Yeah, I do think these incredibly fast chips are going to change things. Alex, when we were talking about the last thing, I kept thinking, we got in Keynote that magic move thing that kind of algorithmically, automatically separated things and let you move one thing on top of another. And then now we have the magic mask in the newest version. So obviously the engineers in the background are automating a lot of this stuff that used to require more precision stuff. And I'm wondering if streaming is going to go the same way. I would bet we'll just get more and more and more, push the button and it works better.
Well, I mean, I think it'll work better. I mean, again, if you take fundamental understanding of how things work and then you add these to it, it's even more powerful. If you
absolutely
throw junk in, I mean, you can get a lot of filters to take out room reverb or to EQ someone's mic, but most people will tell you, Mickey will tell you, it'd be better if you just captured good stuff in the first place.
Sure. We're seeing a lot of that in the noise reduction space, focus on the voice. And it does do that to a certain degree. Is the voice as pure and listenable as it was before? No, because it's eaten into it a little, but it's effective for a lot of what people want to do. So we're just in that era. Next question.
Next question comes in from Jens Olson in Standpoint. He wants to know, what is the best way to route audio output from 3 Macs and a PC to the same AirPod Pros at the same time?
Alex.
I would not do this. Like, it is a little part of hell is the fact that your AirPods don't know who to contact when, and you're in the middle of a call and suddenly they're gone. Because they've now decided to attach to your iPad or to your, I had a problem with my headsets on a flight last week where when the plane jiggled, it was enough to wake up my iPad and it would take my headset away. It took me a little while to figure out what was happening, but I finally connected. Every time we get turbulence, I lose my headset, for my Apple Vision Pro. So anyway, I would not do that. So I would strongly consider not connecting your AirPods specifically to multiple devices. Pick one and have it do that. And you really I know that it can do it, but it doesn't mean that it should do it.
Courtney?
Yeah, about the only way to do this logically is use an outboard mixer of some sort, which you could use like a Rodecaster Pro, which has a Bluetooth built in, or you could just use one of these little analog mixers. You could mix the analog output of the PC and 2 of the Macs into the 3rd Mac, and then you could use hijack then to route that combo sound into the Bluetooth radio of that last Mac and have that connect to your AirPods. So that'd be one way to do it, and that little mixer is only about $29. So you will have to get a boatload of adapters to get analog out of all those 2 1/4-inch TRS inputs.
I'm going to agree with Alex and say probably don't do it. I have had limited success even with my wife and I, who both have AirPods, listening to the same Bluetooth feed that is designed for AirPods, like something out of a computer or an Apple source like a phone. It has the capability to do it, but it's limited. And I don't think if you're trying to do this complicated a thing, I think you want to be on some sort of a true radio system for audio transmission and receiving rather than doing AirPods. I love AirPods. Don't get me wrong. I think they're fabulous tools for 1 or maybe 2 people. If you and your significant other decides to go jogging together, they'll work for that kind of thing. Beyond that, I'd stay just far away from it. My personal feeling. Next question.
From India, Funsak Dorji says, a few times a year, I help with live streaming of soccer, basketball, and school athletics. Can the panelists recommend any Sony cams within $3,000 US dollars budget?
Sony
sorry,
cams.
I didn't raise my hand. I got all set up, but I didn't raise my hand. So the one that I would probably think about for this, for fast setup, there's a couple things that you want. Is you want it to be all in one. So normally I would say get an FX30, but that's not really what you want for sports. You need something that's kind of like more of an ENG style camera. You do want SDI out because you're going to have long runs. So HDMI is going to be problematic if you're trying to set things up. So what I would recommend is this, take a look at the PXW Z90V. This is kind of an all-in-one, does 4K. It's able to do HDR if you need it. It can do 4K if you need it, and it has an HD SDI out so that you can get that out there. And I think that a couple of those would probably be really good for sports coverage.
Let's see if we can get another question.
I think we're...
Oh, do you want to end there?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, again, we're a little loose this week because we're testing a lot of things in the back end. Thank you all for being here today and listening to the show. As always, we will be here every day. We'll be back tomorrow and do another show. Tomorrow's audio day, so that's always a fun panel. And if you're interested in audio things, come in there. Our Teloctaversal today, 29,000 mile, 47,000 kilometers, 231 million bananas for scale, and our thank yous to everybody who participates in this show every day. Behind the scenes, there is a village that lights up to do this. So for our major constituencies, first and foremost, everybody who joins the show, asks questions, our producers, all of you who keep this show running by your curiosity, we thank you for being here and participating every day. For the panelists who come in and offer their expertise freely. We appreciate each and every person who's ever been on this panel because I think everybody who has participated in this and been a panelist has learned immense amounts from our fellow panelists as we sit here and listen to their expertise freely given to everyone. And finally, the incredible backstage crew, the technicians all around the world who participate by getting up every morning and helping us mount this show so that we can bring this information to you for free every single day. And if you want to support the show, please remember that we are a 501c3 and you can go to officehours/donate. I think maybe a little more complicated.
Officehours.global/donate.
/donate. There you go. And you can help us keep this going as long as we possibly can, hopefully into the next century. Who knows? Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Browser and HDR, 23. That was the largest one, 23. SDR is the second largest one, 22. Mobile device in HDR, 10. TV in HDR, 4. So we had about 37 people who said that they watch it in HDR and 22 that showed SDR, which is very...
And those are just the poll participants. Yes.
I really thought it was like 10 people watch it in HDR and 100 people watch it in SDR. So much higher percentage of HDR viewers than we expected. So
I would have guessed a lot of people on iPhones just because they have HDR built in.
It seems like a long show to hold an iPhone, but I guess you'd be listening to it. So maybe it's not. What we probably should have said is SDR and then audio. I
highly recommended a little stand that you can put your iPhone on next to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
see everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Adios. See you for Audio Day. Audio Day is Audio Furniture's cousin, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
Audio Day.